welcome to our new series of 5 Minutes in Conversation With. This is a regular interview series in which we sit down with and talk in depth to clients about the impact of the coronavirus on their business, the steps they've taken to adjust their business to lockdown, how they're addressing the recovery phase of the pandemic, and what impact it's had on their long-term plans for their business. My name is Kieran Donovan. I'm a partner in the corporate commercial team at national law firm Waitmans. I lead the firm's owner-managed business group in our Liverpool office, advising business owners on mergers, acquisitions, fundraisings, and more recently supporting clients with focused and practical advice on the legal issues arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. This week, we're delighted to be joined by Mark Haydock. Mark is Managing Director and majority shareholder of EDP Health, Safety and Environmental Consultancy, a company headquartered in the northwest of England with offices nationwide, and also with offices in Singapore and Australia as well. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for the invite.
I know this is a busy time for you and your team. You're actively engaged advising businesses on how to make their workplaces COVID secure to ensure a safe return to work as we now enter the recovery phase of the pandemic. Just for the benefit of the viewers, can you give me a bit of background about the business, what you do, where you're based, how many people you employ, types of businesses you work with?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So we're a risk management consultancy. The business has been going for over 25 years. I've personally been involved with it for about the last 7 years, operating with around 100 staff in the UK across 5 offices. So they're based headquarters in St Helens in the northwest, and then we've got an office up near Edinburgh, Wetherby, Stafford, London. As you touched on before, internationally, we've also got an office in Singapore that's been going for about 10 years. That's got about 10 staff in it, servicing our clients in the Asia Pacific region. And then more recently, we opened an office February 2019 in Sydney, and that's grown within 12 months to over 20 staff. It's doing well over there. So yeah, that's kind of us. We operate, when we say risk management, across kind of 4 key pillars. That's health and safety, which is where the business was founded. And then we've got environment sustainability, property compliance, which covers asbestos, fire and Legionella, and security.
That's great. And Mark, what would you say differentiates EDP from its competitors, both in the UK and overseas?
I think it's, I know a lot of people use this term, but I think we offer a bespoke service. So we have a range of different delivery models for our clients. A lot of our clients are big corporate organisations. So we work with the likes of Microsoft and Facebook, London Stock Exchange as a few examples. So we like to tailor the service very bespoke to the client and roll out a delivery model that works for them. What you find in wider health and safety market and compliance market is one size fits all approach, tick box approach to safety. So we avoid that at all costs and create bespoke solutions that work for the client and for EDP.
We've been lucky enough to work together since the MBO in 2014, which you led, and you've expanded overseas, you've expanded within the UK. So it's fair to say business was going well before the pandemic hit. But how has it fared since the pandemic hit the UK?
Yeah, it's been, so I think it's fair to say that the pandemic hitting, probably the biggest challenge that we've had, or I've had since we've been involved in the business, and probably likely to be the biggest challenge we faced in the future as well. So it's been a mixed bag. So we're quite fortunate that parts of our business have shown a lot of resilience through this period. Others have been more heavily impacted. So if you take the property compliance arm of our business, which relies heavily on our guys and girls going to site to undertake statutory inspections, we saw from probably early March time that the work starting to taper off. Clients locking down sites. We work a lot in the university sector, and universities were starting to kind of preempt a lockdown and lock down the campuses, and we were starting to get restrictions on access to these sites. And then obviously once the lockdown came in, that escalated pretty quickly, or accelerated pretty quickly. other parts of our business, so take health and safety as an example, we transitioned pretty quickly to be able to deliver that remotely for our clients, and that was done. We are a business that's always been able to work remotely. We have the infrastructure to allow us to do that, so that we had a lot less impact on that side. And then since the lockdown put in place, and businesses have started to look how they open up workplaces in a safe way once the lockdown is eased. We've been supporting them in their COVID secure or COVID risk assessment work, which has created a spike in work for that part of the business as well. So it's been a real mixed bag, a real challenge, but yeah, that's kind of where we are at the moment.
And in relation to your staff, have you had to access the government's furloughing scheme at all?
Yeah, so you won't be surprised off the back of the last answer to understand that we, on the property compliance, asbestos and fire side, once we realised that those guys can't access sites, we went through a very quick period of consultation with them around accessing the furlough scheme, and placed a number of them onto the scheme, as well as some of the back of house support staff that support that part of the business. Since then, we've managed to bring people and phase people back in. We still do have some people on furlough at the moment, but we are, since the lockdown's been kind of eased in the last couple of weeks, we've seen workflow starting to flow back in, which has allowed us to bring people back into the business, which has been really pleasing to see. On the other side of the business, health and safety side, environment and sustainability, the access to the furlough scheme wasn't really required, so they've just continued to operate as normal.
And what engagement have you managed to have with your other stakeholders in the business? You've got private equity money in the business, so you've got investors, but you've also got suppliers, landlords, customers, the bank as well. How have you managed with them? How have they reacted to the current situation and the support?
Everyone's been pretty supportive, to be fair. I think everybody understands that it's a unique situation, and most businesses in the UK are going through similar challenges. We were quite fortunate in the way that we've structured and the way that we've operated the business over the last kind of 5 years, that access to funds isn't really necessary. The furlough scheme helped with easing that cash flow burden, but we haven't needed to really aggressively look to cut costs. So where possible, we've continued to honour kind of supplier agreements, etc. In the odd scenario, odd case where we've been offered payment holidays, we've taken them. But otherwise, we've continued to honour our commitments, and our cash flows have allowed that, and will continue to allow that. So that's quite a nice position to be in this current situation. But we're constantly monitoring that to make sure that we keep on top of it, and if we needed to access any funds, we would love to do so. From a landlord point of view, obviously we've got commercial office space. We understand the pressures that they're under. And they're going to continue to be under as people transition to more working from home and the squeeze is put on them. So we made a commitment that we try and honour, or we would honour those and not look to defer any of that money. And we've continued to pay them because we want those offices space still to be available when everything goes back to some sense of normality in the future.
In terms of managing your cash flow and what have you had to tap into the CBIL scheme, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, or the Bounce Back Loan Scheme?
Not at this moment in time, no. Something we monitor. Like I said, the reserves that we have mean that we don't have to do that at this moment in time. But we're conscious that things can change, and a lot of what we've been doing since the furlough scheme came in and the lockdown came in has been planning the transition out of lockdown. And I think that'll be key for a lot of businesses, is how they transition out of the current kind of model of operating, and matching up the costs and the revenue, as to bringing your costs back in at the same time as matching up with your revenue. So there's a potential in the future that we might need to look at that, but at this moment in time we're fine.
And in terms of things like insurance risk, given that it's in the press a lot recently about businesses struggling to claim under their business interruption cover, has that been an issue for your business?
we've never had business interruption insurance to start with, so the simple answer is no. That's not something that we've accessed or needed to access, so no, it hasn't been an issue.
Now, with operations in Singapore and Australia, obviously you're in a unique position to be able to compare and contrast how the UK approach to the pandemic compares to that of governments overseas. What would you say has been done differently for the better and also for the worse? And what should best practice look like?
Wow, that's a big question. If you look at the actions, I'll take Australia as an example, because that business that we've got down there probably matches our UK business closer than our Singapore operations. So it's a good like-for-like comparison. I think what the Australian government did well was shut down the borders pretty quickly and then get a control of the cases locally and the local transmission of cases. So they've kept total cases under, I think they're sitting around 7,000 in total at the moment, which has allowed them to transition out of their lockdown pretty a lot quicker than we have, and they're getting back to some sense of normality. In fact, they can go back to the pub, which is an absolute bonus. So they controlled it well, and they've done a good job of then releasing the controls in a controlled way to allow businesses to continue to operate. We've been fortunate in a way in Australia that we secured some work on the bushfire remediation projects that are going on off the back of the bushfires that happened earlier in the year. And also one of our clients, the Department of Defence, is looking to stimulate the economy and the government is pumping money into defence for capital works projects that we can tap into as well. So through all of this kind of chaos in the global economic environment, our Australia business has gone from strength to strength and posted 3 record months in a row, which is really pleasing to see. It's such a young business over there, and long may that continue.
Certainly lessons to be learned by the sounds of it. So as lockdown's going to be gradually eased in the coming weeks, what plans are you making for your business for the next phase? What risks do you foresee in terms of businesses starting to return to work? You touched on it before, and how are you managing those risks?
Yeah, I think I touched on it before around matching up the costs flowing back into the business. I think a lot of businesses who furloughed staff will find that after a chaotic period of trying to understand the furlough scheme, placing people onto furlough, you then went into kind of a way of trading that is quite, in a way, comfortable and artificial in the way that it's propped up by the government scheme. I think a lot of businesses then quickly turn to how do we transition out of this, and it'll be interesting to see what the Chancellor has to say about how the scheme is going to continue in some form past the 31st of July. I think that's coming this week, because that'll be key to see how people can transition their businesses from this kind of comfortable state at the moment through. And we've done a lot of work in forecasting a range of scenarios around how we see the workflows coming back into the business, the impact on the industries in which we operate. In some ways that's very difficult to predict. We've made some assumptions around how that might operate going forward, and the pressure on business that will create, and then trying to create a more dynamic business model that can work within that new environment that we're going to find ourselves in, a more flexible, nimble business model that allows us to also, there are risks, there's opportunities there. So market opportunities that allow us, we can capitalise on. At the moment, the national conversation is turning to health and safety, which is great for a health and safety business. So Boris talking about COVID secure workplaces is great marketing for our business, and we've been able to capitalise on that over the last couple of weeks. And we see that as not just a short-term opportunity, but a long-term opportunity. And also the opportunity to work in a more flexible way and have a more dynamic business model. So there are risks, but there's also opportunities there, and we want to focus on capitalising as much as we can on those opportunities as we transition into kind of the next phase of this pandemic.
And you mentioned government. Do you think you'll need, what support do you think businesses like yours could usefully benefit from government over the coming months as you start to reopen and get back to your full potential?
Good question. I think, yeah, it's when this all kicked off. I think what happened even before the lockdown was a lot of business confidence, and that's when you saw work starting to dry up and opportunities starting to disappear. I think what we need from the government now is to rebuild that confidence, and yeah, in a way. So a lot of that is around clarity. Clarity around how they're going to stimulate the economy, how some of these schemes are going to work, and how long they're going to work for, and allowing clients the confidence to start to invest again, get projects back on stream, get people into workplaces in a safe way. And if we can get some clarity around that, and we're starting to get that through the guidance documents that are being provided by the government, if we can start to build that business confidence again, then hopefully we will see some type of return to a level of normality. I'm not sure we'll ever go back to normality we knew beforehand, but there will be a level of normality, and business confidence is key to that.
And our final question, Mark, obviously businesses looking at the short to medium term impact of this, but how do you think this crisis has affected and will affect your long-term plans for the business?
Our long-term plans have always been to build a global multidisciplinary risk management consultancy. That doesn't change. We might have we've hit a global bump in the road, should we say. There will be other bumps in the road, hopefully not as big as this one, as we work towards that goal. But we may be slightly delayed on achieving our goals as a result of what's going on at the moment, but we'll probably be more determined. And when we get there, it'll be all the sweeter as well for going through challenges like we currently are. So no changes to the long-term plans. It's just a realisation that it may take a little bit longer, and will be more enjoyable when we get there.
Mark, that's been fascinating. That concludes our Q&A session today. Unfortunately, it's all we've got time for. I'm sure there are lots of other questions that we could ask you, but you've been a great guest on today. Fascinating hearing about how you and your team have been dealing with the crisis, how you've been helping not just in your own business, but with your clients and their business as well, and how you see the longer term opportunities for your business in a post-COVID world, should we ever get there. If anyone's interested in finding out more about EDP, the website is probably the best place to start, is it? And you won't mind being contacted directly as well? Yeah,
www.edp-uk.com, or you can email me or find me on LinkedIn. It's Mark Haydock, obviously Managing Director of EDP.
Brilliant. And for the viewers out there, this Q&A is going to be published on the Waitman's website. It'll also be shared across our social media channels as well. All that remains for me to say to you, the viewers, is thank you for joining. Hope you've enjoyed this Q&A as much as we have. Mark, thanks again for your time today. Fascinating insights. Really appreciate that. I know it's a busy time for you in the business. There's going to be other in conversation with interviews with key clients and contacts of the firm. So please watch this space. There'll be more coming along soon. Thank you.